Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the vlog. You are about to watch an episode from a session that I just went in and played. And the session started pretty regular. Then there was a spot with Ace King that got really weird. So stick around, check it out. Let me know what you think about it. If you enjoy, like, subscribe. Let's get to it. In the first hand of the night, we're in the cutoff and we look down at 3-4 of hearts. We see two early position limpers before the action gets to me, and with suited connectors, I bump it up to $12.
That's a raise. I've seen it before that look just like that.
Both limpers call, so we're off to a flop three ways. The flop is King 5-6 with two diamonds, so I flopped an open-ended straight draw here. It checks to an early position player who bets $15. I've played with this guy before, and he does not have a fold button, so for $15, I'm going to call with 4 high all day. Under the gun folds, we're off to the turn. The turn is a deuce of clubs, so I've gotten there, but it brings in a second flush draw. My opponent slows down and he checks, and so I fire for $20. I'm trying to lay a price that no king or no flush draw can fold to, and he calls, so we're off to the river. The river is a 4 of spades, and my opponent checks it over to me, and I feel like my hand's been devalued a little bit. I consider just checking behind, but this guy's an action player. Perhaps I can squeak out a little bit more value, so I bet $30. Again, trying to lay a price too good for anybody to fold to. However, he folds. We are in the hijack when we look down at Queen 10 offsuit. We see under the gun and +1 limp before the action folds to me, and I bump it up to $12. The button, the small blind, and under the gun all call, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 10-10-8 rainbow, so I flop trips here. The action checks to me, and I decide to go ahead with the board so locked up and just check behind. The turn is a 2, completes the full rainbow here. Under the gun then takes the initiative and he fires for $15. +1 makes the fold, and it's on me, and I decide to flat here because I'm trying to bring the button along, but unfortunately he folds, so we're off to the river heads up. The river is an ace of clubs, and I think this is actually kind of an action-killing card, and sure enough, my opponent checks it over to me. However, with 3 of a kind, I have to at least put a little bet out there, so I bet $40, but my opponent folds. We are straddling from the button when we look down at Ace King offsuit. We see a raise from the small blind to $15 before the action folds all the way around to me. I then raise to $45. The small blind does some thinking, then I hear 2 words I wanted to hear. My opponent shoves all in. I obviously call, we're off to a run out. The flop is Queen Deuce 9 with 2 diamonds. The turn is an ace of hearts, and figuring I might be up against a hand like jacks, I decide to go ahead and show. The river is a queen of spades, and I don't love that card based on one of the hands I put him on. However, the small blind looks pretty disappointed, and eventually he mucks. There's a button straddle, we're in the cutoff, and we look down at 8-9 of hearts. We see 3 callers before the action gets to me, and with suited connectors, this is a great spot to squeeze. I bump it up to $25. The action player in early position is the only caller, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is 9-9 deuce, so once again I flop trips. My opponent checks to me, and just like the last hand, having the board so locked up, I check behind. The turn is an ace of diamonds, and once again my opponent checks it to me. What I didn't notice before about Mr. Action is that he only has about $28 behind, so I elect to bet $15 in hopes that it's just going to induce the shove. Surprisingly, my opponent just calls, so we're off to the river.
Go ahead and put it in there because you know it's getting in there. I have a 9.
He checks, I jam, he calls, I roll it over, and we're good here. Guys, this next hand is really weird. We're in +1 and we look down at Ace King offsuit. When the action gets to me, I bump it up to $12. The action on +2 and then he goes all in for $20. It's now on the cutoff and it sounds like he's asking if the action is still open, but with the way the dealer explains it, it sounds like his options are to call or to fold.
You have the option to fully call or you can surrender the call.
Listen again.
You have the option to fully call or you can surrender the call.
It sounds like he says you can either call or surrender the 12, so I'm starting to wonder now if maybe he called my $12 not seeing the jam by the player next to me. At the time I was playing this though, I had no idea what was going on. So I'm kind of taking this as a sign of strength. He only has about 65 bucks behind, and I think he wanted to jam, but he just calls. Then the button comes along and calls. Then the big blind jams all in for $150 total. So where are we at here? 150 bucks is pretty much all of my profit for the day, so it feels like a way bigger decision than it probably is. With the way the action unfolded though, I have to think somebody has at least a strong pocket pair. If I call, there's obviously no way either short stack player behind me is going to fold, so it's $150 to win roughly the $250 that will be in the pot, plus the $130 from the other player, so it's like $400, so I'm getting a pretty decent price. If I'm up against something like jacks or queens, it's not a terrible spot, but kings or aces, and I'm in really bad shape. I'm puzzled. Again, just the way the dealer explained it just kind of gave me a weird feeling about this hand, but I'm not sure you're ever supposed to fold here. But do I want to risk the last hour and 45 minutes of work in a hand that I really have no idea what's happening? Eventually I fold. Yep, I fold. The cutoff and the button both call off their short stack, so at least we'll see a run out. The flop is ace king jack. Well, this was a big mistake. The turn is a 10 of diamonds, giving any queen a straight and now putting 3 diamonds on the board as well. The river a 9 of hearts, so it just absolutely gross run out. The big blind rolls over ace king offsuit. +2 shows 7-9 of diamonds for the river flush, and the button mucks. Obviously, looking at the results, it was a great move by me, but was it the right move? I thought the cutoff was way stronger than he was, and I still think the button had jacks or queens. Do you ever fold this hand here? Let me know in the comments.
Kind of nit folds ace king.
We can't worry about it too much because a couple hands later, we're 5-handed, there's a button straddle, we're in the small blind, and we look down at ace king of clubs. I'm going to open the action for $15. The big blind calls before it folds around to the button who also calls, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is king 6-10 rainbow. I decide to go ahead and check, and it checks to the button straddler who bets $25. With top pair, I think a call here is fine, as I can fire on a lot of turn cards, so I just flat, and the big blind comes along as well, so we're off to a turn. The turn is a 9. It's not necessarily the card I wanted to see, as 7-8 and queen jack have both gotten there, but it's still not a terrible card. However, I elect to just check, and I'm looking for the big blind to check and then the button to bet, but it actually checks through rather quickly. Looking back, that's flawed logic. I flatted the flop to blast off on the turn, and then I ended up checking because one specific pair of connectors got there. I think I should have bet. The river is an 8. Yeah, so now it's just terrible. It's on me, and I'm trying to decide what to do. The flush draw missed, and whoever shows up here with a 7. I think checking is probably the best option to let a short stack bluff at it, so I check, and the big blind obliges when he bets all in for $53. The button folds, and I guess this is exactly what I wanted, so I make the call. He rolls over 9-7 of diamonds for the rivered straight. That's kind of tilting. $15 pre-flop with 9-7? Okay. I guess I had a lot of chances to take control of that hand and I didn't. I'm just trying to avoid playing such a tag style all the time, but this time it backfired. Ace king of clubs in the small blind didn't work so well last time. Let's try it again. It folds to the hijack who limps, and it folds around to me and I decide to bump it up to $12. The big blind folds, but the hijack calls, so we'll go to a flop out of position heads up. The flop is 8-3 queen, so I haven't really connected here. I check, and my opponent checks behind. The turn is a 3, so it pairs the board. My opponent showed no interest, so on the turn I fire for $20, looking to take it down, but my opponent calls, so we'll head to the river. The river is a 4 of diamonds. I have completely whiffed here with ace-king. I check, my opponent fires for $55. I don't beat anything, so I have to fold. As the day has worn on, the table has gotten a little bit tighter. We're in the low jack, and we look down at 8-9 of hearts. We see a limp from +1 before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to $12. We see calls from the hijack, the small blind, the big blind, and +1, so we are off to a flop multi-way. The flop is Jack 9-3, so I flop middle pair here. It checks to me, and I throw a c-bet of $30 out. The hijack is the only taker on this bet, and when he calls, I'm pretty sure he has a jack here, so we're going to have to do some maneuvering on the turn. The turn's a pretty good card for that. It's a 5. It shouldn't really change anything. I haven't improved, and I can't win if he has a jack, so I'll happily apply some pressure, and I jam all in. He says, then he shows me ace-jack of spades and folds pretty quickly. I decide to show my little semi-bluff to try to loosen this table up a little bit. We're in the small blind when we look down at jack-queen offsuit. Under the gun, the hijack, and the cutoff all limp. When the action's on me, I bump it up to $14. All 3 call. The flop is 9-6 with 2 spades, and the action will check all the way around, so we'll see a turn. The turn is a queen of hearts, so now I have top pair and the flush draw bricked. I bet for $20, and both the hijack and the cutoff call, so we're still 3 ways to the river. The river is a 4 of hearts, so some weird straights get there, but the flush does not get there, and there's no overcard to my pair. So when the action's on me, I bet $65. The bet's not huge. I'm giving about 3-1 on a call, but honestly, I feel like I have the best hand here. The hijack ends up folding, but the cutoff insta-calls. I roll my hand over, and he looks frustrated, which is good, and eventually flips over queen 8, and I get to drag this one. The last 45 minutes or so has been a total fold fest. One hand I flopped a set, but I allowed my opponent to catch up and river his flush. It only cost me about $25 though. A lot of little hands raising pre-flop and just absolutely whiffing flops and stuff like that has our stack back down around starting. What better way to fix that? How about there being a button straddle? We're in the cutoff and we look down at pocket aces. The small blind, under the gun, and +1 all call to $5, so when the action gets to me, I bump it up to $20. Surprisingly, only +1 call, so we'll play this flop heads up. The flop is queen 4-8 with 2 hearts. It checks to me, and I put out a c-bet of $25. My opponent calls, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a 6 of spades, so 5-7 got there, but I don't think he has that. It checks to me, and I consider checking behind to blast off on the river, but a heart can derail those plans, so instead I fire for $65, and my opponent folds.
It's my turn to have him this time.
We're in the big blind and we wake up with pocket 9s. There are 3 callers before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to $14. We see under the gun and a middle position player both call, so we'll play this flop 3 ways. The flop is 10-10-5 with 2 spades, so it's probably a pretty good flop for my hand, as it's very unlikely anyone's going to have a 10 here. However, with 2 spades, I don't really want to give any free cards, so I bet $35. One by one, everybody folds. In the last hand of the night, we're in the small blind and we look down at ace-queen offsuit. +1 opens the action for $10. It folds to me, and I re-raise to $30. With the action back on +1, he then jams for $85 total.
All of it?
Only a nit folds here, so I call.
Only a fucking nit folds here.
The runout does not improve us at all. My opponent flips over ace-king. Just kind of a cooler there. At this point, I've been at it about 5.5 hours, and after being up almost $240 at one point, I find myself back around even. I've kind of been card dead ever since I laid that ace-king down, and any pots that I've won have been pretty small. So, with a lot of editing to do, I decided to go ahead and pack it up for the night. That is a wrap on a very weird session. You really just started out scooping a bunch of moderate pots in the beginning. I had built up a little stack. And there was that hand with the ace-king, and I don't know, I can't describe it. I had this feeling that I didn't want to get my money in at that spot at that time. And I made probably the weirdest fold I've ever made in poker. That was strange. And then I went and I ate afterwards, and then when I came back, just the cards kind of turned against me. I was very card dead a lot, and I just seemed to be flipping over second best, and just bizarre. I don't know if this will make a good episode or not, but I guess we're gonna find out. We were into the game for $200 We played 5.5 hours. We were out for 196, so we lost about 70 cents an hour. If you enjoy, like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.